Meanwhile, the young and handsome Count Paris asks Juliet's father for her hand in marriage, although Juliet is only 13 years old. Lord Capulet agrees and organizes a party. Lady Capulet is happy to tell the news to her daughter to prepare her for the party which will take place that very evening in their house. One of the servants of the Capulets is sent to invite the population of Verona to the feast that will be held that very evening, and Romeo and his friends decide to crash the feast. They go to the party wearing masks to hide their real identity because they know that the two families are rival and they are not welcome at the party. When Romeo spots Juliet across the room, he immediately falls in love and he forgets about Rosaline. Although he is recognized by the Capulet family, he is not sent away. So he takes advantage to attract Juliet's attention, and they are both captured in an overwhelming feeling, and they kiss. It is love at first sight. The Montagues must leave the party, and Romeo hides in the orchard of the house of the Capulet. While he is considering his love for Juliet, she goes out in the balcony and, speaking aloud to the moon, she declares her love to Romeo. Romeo reveals his presence, and the two young lovers exchange love vows. They don't seem to be worried about the hatred between their two families. Romeo reveals his love for Juliet to his friend Friar Lawrence, who considers the marriage between the two lovers a possibility to put an end to the long feud between the two families, and so advises Romeo to take Juliet there in the chapel so to marry them secretly. The next day, thanks to the help of Juliet's nurse, she is taken to the church and the wedding is secretly celebrated. But soon after, Juliet must go back home because her parents don't know anything about the fact. In the streets of Verona, the members of the two rival families openly challenge each other, and Tybalt, Juliet's cousin, wants to challenge Romeo in duel because he is upset about the crashing to the party of the previous day by the members of the Montague's family. Romeo, now related to Tybalt thanks to the secret marriage, begs him to call off the duel. But accidentally, during the fighting, Mercutio, Romeo's best friend, is mortally wounded and he dies immediately after. Romeo um, is crazy for his best friend death and kills Tybalt. The young Montague is now banished by the Prince of Verona and he is forced to flee. Now he is an outlaw. Friar Lawrence devises a plan for Romeo to escape to Mantua, after spending his first and last night with his new bride. Meanwhile, Lord Capulet makes plans with Count Paris for Juliet to marry him in 3 days. When Juliet comes to know about her father's decision, she refuses to marry Paris, and um, Lord Capulet is angry about her daughter's behavior. But Juliet is a daughter, so she has to accept her father's decision. Unsure of what to do, Juliet seeks advice from Friar Lawrence, who devises a plan for her to meet Romeo in Mantua. Friar Lawrence gives Juliet a potion to take the night before the marriage to Paris. The potion will make her appear dead for 48 hours. She follows Friar Lawrence's instructions and drinks the potion. The next morning, the family find the dead body of the girl in her bed. They take the young Juliet in the family crypt. In Mantua, Romeo doesn't get the right information about Friar Lawrence's plan, and he gets the wrong information about Juliet's death. So he decides to run to Verona. In Mantua, Romeo doesn't get the right information about Sir Friar Lawrence's plan, and he comes to know about Juliet's death. So he decides to run to Verona, to Juliet's crypt. On his way to Verona, she buys a poison to drink and die on Juliet's tomb. He drinks the poison and dies. Soon after, Juliet wakes up and she finds the dead body of Romeo, and she immediately understands everything. She tries to drink some poison from his lips, but she doesn't succeed. So she takes his dagger and stabs herself in her chest, and she dies next to her lover. Coming upon the lifeless young lovers, Montague and Capulet agree to put an end to the feud. So far, the plot. Now, let's have a look more closely to the characteristics and the features of this tragedy. So far, the plot. Now, let's have a look at the stylistic characteristics of the tragedy. As I told you before, it is a very popular play. Of course, it is the most popular tragedy in Shakespeare's production, and it tells the story, the most famous love story of all times. In fact, a lot of films were made and were inspired by this love story. As you can see, even Zeffirelli produced one of his most popular film with, and it was issued in 1968. Another version, which we analyze, is Romeo plus Juliet, which is set in modern times, but in another town in South America, actually, in Verona Beach, which is the modern setting for the love story of the young couple. The plot, let's revise it together, is set, the setting is Verona, and the length of the play covers 4 days and 4 nights. The protagonists are the members of the two rival families and, of course, the young lover Romeo and Juliet. It is both, as I told you before, it is both a comedy and a tragedy. The first two acts are belong to the category of the love comedy. In fact, Romeo and Juliet meet at the Capulets Ball. There is this party, and it has the characteristic of the comedy. Also, the characters are taken from the tradition of the comedy, as for example, the nurse. Uh, so during the first two acts, they meet and then they uh, celebrate. They get to they make their dream come true by getting married. Then the tragedy reveals from the third act when there is the duel between Mercutio and Romeo and sorry, Tybalt and Romeo, where Mercutio dies and is mortally wounded. He Romeo is mad, is crazy, and he kills Tybalt, that is Juliet's cousin. Then, as you know, he was banished from Verona and they had to flee to Mantua. In the fourth act, Juliet decides to put to follow Friar Lawrence's instruction and to pretend to be dead, so to reach Romeo once she has avoided the marriage with Paris. In the fifth act, of course, the tragic conclusion with this misleading information that never gets the right person, and the two lovers die. So it is a comedy because there is this strong attraction between the young lovers. There is this ball, this masked ball, and there are characters that have this comic appeal, as for example the nurse that I told you before, and there is this life, the description of the life in the streets of Verona, which is very lively. It is a tragedy because the chance uh, plays a very tragic role, and it leads to the death of the two lovers. The chance because although everything has been planned perfectly, something goes wrong, and the comedy turns into a tragedy. Let's look closer at the most important characters. Romeo is a young boy, a gentle, a kind young boy. He shows love to his family. He is in love with Rosaline. She doesn't return his love to her love to Romeo. And he is the courteous lover. He is he is his love to uh, Juliet is like the adoration to a saint, and he is linked to the image of light. While Juliet, although she's very young, she's 13, she's an unconventional girl. She tries to oppose her father's will, although she doesn't succeed because she knows that her role is to obey her father's will. But she stands for innocence, and she doesn't belong to any fixed characterization. She's a completely new and modern character because although she is very young, she's a real woman. The themes, of course, the theme of love and the power of love, which overcomes